Hi there, my name is E, and this is Not Your Father's 2 Cents. Coming home late, secretive phone or computer use, changes in communication. These are all signs that maybe your partner could be cheating, right? But what about when it comes to finances? What if your romantic partner has hidden a debt, a credit card, or maybe even opened a secret bank account? Would you consider that cheating? According to a survey from Bankrate, 42% of U.S. adults who are married or living with a partner say they've kept a financial secret from their significant other. Now, of those, 28% say keeping financial secrets is as bad as physical cheating, and 7% say it's worse than a physical affair. In Debt.com's third annual debt and divorce survey, 1/3 of respondents reported credit card debt and financial infidelity were critical factors in their divorce. Joining me today is Mindy Oglesby. She is the founder and CEO of Oglesby Wealth Strategies and has been working in the financial industry for more than 2 decades. Hi, Mindy. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good. So financial infidelity, can you explain kind of what that looks like or what you've seen in the industry as far as that goes? Is it a common issue among your clients?
I wouldn't say that it's common, but statistics show that it's, around 41% of people do it. But it's someone who is deliberately choosing to, not tell the truth about their spending habits. We consider that intentionally lying, about the money that they either squirrel away or spend, without telling their spouse or significant other. If you're noticing that money is not adding up, in the bank account, there's kind of money missing. I think that that's a good reason to start asking questions of what's going on, what have you been spending on it lately, and trying to dig deeper before it gets really out of hand. I do think that things like that can be fixed with some good open communication. But, kind of get into the heart of the problem of why are you doing this?
What advice, I guess, would you have for maybe new couples or couples who have even been together for a long time who might be taking that next step in their relationship, whether it's purchasing a home together or even getting married? Is there any financial counseling that maybe they should get ahead of time, or what kind of conversation should they have with each other to kind of make sure they're on the same page to avoid this from happening?
I definitely think that sitting down and having a very deep, open conversation in regards to your finances, kind of laying it out on the table of what your income is, what your debt is, what do you spend things on, and being in agreement on it. And if you don't see eye to eye on it, I do think that it's definitely okay and healthy to bring a third-party counselor in to kind of dig deeper to see where there could be some issues.
Yeah, I think, too, a lot of people obviously have different spending habits or different experiences when it comes to money based on their environment or maybe how they were raised or simply just the resources that they have, how much they're, how they grew up in terms of
Right.
socioeconomic status. Is it a problem if you're with someone who maybe spends money differently than you do? And if so, what are some ways to maybe find a middle ground?
I think that sitting down and just having a budget, not necessarily that everybody, adheres to the budget super strictly, but just having a mindset of there's usually always a spender and there's always a saver, and opposites attract. And so that's okay. I think going into, an intimate relationship and having an open mind that it's okay for someone to be different than you, because if they are the spender, they may bring a lot of good things to the table that, you would never go out and buy for yourself or anything like that. So I think that there's some good to being completely opposite, but I also think that just being able to communicate with one another. If a person is always a no, we are not spending this, we're not doing that. That's their own money demon of having control that they also need to address. Versus even the person that overly spends. So there's always reasons behind the way that things are done, and so just getting to the root of all that, and both being on the same page of, hey, let's be the most healthiest we can be with how we spend our money, with how we save our money, with how we invest our money.
Right. And I think that's a great point, because I think a lot of times, at least what I've seen like from people in my life, there is that one spouse that manages all the finances, writes out the bills, like handles that. So it may not even always, there's a difference between being controlling and then just simply having a conversation that between each other that's open, and setting boundaries on spending. So I think but that's probably a fine line too. It can cross over into a point to where it does get controlling. This is a question that I also have had, because I've heard of people doing this. Do you think if you're married, like what's your stance on combined bank accounts versus like each person having their own if they're both generating income?
I think that both of that is healthy. I think keeping an individual account with that maybe you both agree on, hey, we are going to pull our monies together, but that we both take a certain amount to put in, a separate bank account, because I may want to go buy my husband a present that he knows nothing about. And if we have, credit cards and bank accounts that are all pulled together, he may see that I've made a purchase way in advance and ruin the surprise, per se. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with having separateness, as long as there is open communication with you both, knowing that, hey, I've got a little, rat hole over here of money that, it's kind of an unspoken thing that I don't have to just ask you, is it okay if I go buy XYZ? Because we both are okay with, having a little bit of money over here to do, kind of at will what we want, and keeping, a little bit of your individuality in the relationship.
Right. That's a great point too, because I think when couples maybe are starting to have that financial conversation with each other of, okay, are we on the same page? What maybe needs to be disclosed in those first couple conversations? Like, should I be bringing up how much student debt I might be in, or any prior debts before this person came into my life, or even any issues in like a previous marriage maybe that have like financial aspects to it? Do you think that's worth disclosing?
Absolutely. I think that if you're at a point in your relationship, I wouldn't say that you discuss it the first week that you meet somebody. But
that's a great first date conversation.
Right? Yeah. Like, oh, by the way, I've got XYZ going on over here. But I do think that, if you are pursuing each other in a long-term commitment, I do think that those are some great and important conversations to have, because nobody wants to be blindsided on any level. And I think that you disclosing, hey, by the way, I've got this amount of student debt and I'm paying on it, or I've got this amount of credit card debt, because that is letting the other person know, kind of maybe they could completely help you in it. Maybe that's a strong suit for them of like, oh, well, let me help you, get that under control, or let's sit down and pay off some of that debt. Whereas, maybe you don't know where to start. And so I definitely think that addressing it before it becomes a massive problem is super important as well.
When does keeping, like, maybe I went over a budget that was set between me and my partner while I was out school shopping with the kids. Maybe I, went $50 over the budget. When do you think like those little white lies maybe cross into a bigger problem? Like if you, had a shopping spree that was went a little overboard. It doesn't happen often. Do you think, like, I guess I'm trying to ask, like, where's the line between just, you know, not telling your partner every single time that you swipe the card, as opposed to, okay, now I'm keeping, like, secrets and this is becoming an issue?
Just going back to even, you know, the little, like, oh, I went $50 over, and they don't disclose it. I think that there's fear in that. And so what are you afraid of? What's going on behind the scenes in your mind that you're fearful of not disclosing it? Is it, you know, your fear of disappointment for your partner, or are you fearful of how they're going to react? And so those are discussions that, you know, need to be brought out. And if you can't get resolution on it early on, again, like seek outside help. I mean, the most important thing should be your relationship with each other and preserving that relationship. And so, you know, even if it's not a physical affair with another person outside of your marriage, the money issues can become huge problems, and it does. It breaks up a lot of marriages, and so, you know, I definitely think that it's just not worth it. And I think that when you start to feel that way,
there's bigger
some people,
problems.
you know, it goes on, right? There's bigger problems, and I think some people, if they let it go on for so long, it's a symptom of a bigger problem. And so, just like somebody who, you know, overly indulges in drinking or uses drugs, I would not label them, you know, as they're a drug addict. They are self-medicating for some reason. People who overly indulge in spending sprees, there is a root problem that's the reason that they're doing that. They're doing that to help make themselves feel better or whatever in the moment. So I think that there's bigger problems up underneath, and that's just a mask of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because usually it's trying to fill some sort of need when you're
void. Yep.
Yeah, it's some form of escapism.
Right.
If there is maybe a couple who's listening, or someone who's listening who is in a situation where either they or their partner is being financially unfaithful, for lack of a better word, what would you recommend they do? Like, they've identified the problem. What should their next steps be?
And they've discussed it with each other, and they can't get on the same page.
Yeah, like maybe somehow, like, the husband found out that the wife opened up like a secret credit card and has been using it, or vice versa. Maybe a statement came in the mail or something, and they've identified, okay, this has happened. What should their next steps be from there? Should they go seek advice right away? Or I guess, what do you do if you're in that situation but maybe don't know how to get out?
And you feel stuck, I think you should communicate. I think there should be an open conversation and some consequences in place of, hey, this is the way it's made me feel that you did this, and you know, whether you feel violated or you know, cheated on, and hey, like, this can't continue, and if it happens again, you know, here's some consequences. And I definitely think that seeking a financial counselor to get on the same page, if you truly want things to work and you have each other's best interest at heart, I definitely think that seeking some wise outside counsel to help mitigate through it, and I think it makes you stronger for it if you are able to work through it and be in agreement with each other
and come out on the other side of that. Absolutely,
and come out on the other side.
Yeah,
because if you don't work it out and you end it, whoever is doing that is just going to carry it over to the next relationship. So it's not going to be fixed, you know, just because you end that relationship. It'll just continue with whoever else they partner with.
Yeah. So it seems like kind of overall, like, financial infidelity, regardless of who's committing it, there's a deeper, maybe personal, like, root problem for it. There's either relationship issues and where you don't feel like you can talk to each other openly and comfortably about the way money's being spent, or there's a lack of trust between the two of you, maybe, and that could mean you're just maybe not compatible.
And I think it creates more mistrust when that happens.
Yeah, when trying to keep it hidden is it's just exemplifying the issue. For maybe someone in a relationship who's not the one that manages finances, what can they do to still kind of make sure that they're not, I guess, how can they keep track of things? Because I've heard my parents have friends, where, like, the wife will say, oh, so, Bill does all the bills and I don't know anything that's going on with their finances, or he does taxes, he does all these things. Mm-hmm. That's probably not a great idea to not have any sort of input in what's happening financially.
Yeah, I think that with every aspect of the relationship, I think it's being intentional to learn and being curious about what's going on in every area of your relationship, especially in finances, but to be intentional. Maybe you set up that you have a once a month dinner out, and that once a month dinner out, it's only going to be about the finances and what's going on in the checkbook and what's going on with the credit cards and all that, and just keeping, a check with, like a check-in with one another. You do it with, if a couple has children, you have to check in about even the kids' schedules and things that are going on. And so I think that with finances, it's definitely both people should be involved, even if one is consistently taking care of the responsibility of that, because that's their stronger suit, and the other person, it's a weaker suit. But I definitely think that there should still be an open communication of, hey, this is what's going on, because I've got clients who one spouse passed away suddenly and the other spouse didn't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of, is what happens when, like, a sudden tragic event happens, and if you're clueless as to what, ends need to be tied up and how things are getting moved on, even especially if there's no estate plan. Even I can't even begin to probably think of that kind of mess.
Well, and I've got clients who they have no clue. They don't know the passwords to the bank accounts, or they don't know anything, and it's so much more of a hassle and stress than just the grieving process of losing their spouse. And maybe that spouse was great at it, and maybe they were so trusting to do the right thing. And this other spouse doesn't know anything about it. And then they, at that moment, have to blindly trust somebody else to help them. And that next person may not be a person that's trustworthy.
Or may not have good intentions. It's a stranger.
And may not have good intentions. Right. May not have good intentions and may steer you down a completely wrong path that makes your life even more hellacious than just losing a spouse.
What do you do if you do have a client that, like, how do you help them if they don't really have any information to give you, like no account? How do you even begin to help somebody who is now clueless because maybe they weren't involved in what was happening, with their financial situation? Right.
Well, you start with the tax returns and any statements that they have that they're aware of. And I would say most spouses know that there's, like, maybe they bank at such and such bank, or, they had a 401k or IRA at such and such. So there's, like, statements around that they are able to, collect. And for the most part of the spouses that I've seen, that their spouses passed on, they are the beneficiary in that. But I see a lot of clients coming to me, in their 50s and 60s, starting the estate planning process because they're getting close to retirement, where I think it's so important in your 20s and 30s to go ahead and say, hey, if this happens, this is what I would like done. And both of you kind of already see the game plan beforehand.
So with kind of the name of this podcast being Not Your Father's 2 Cents, I always like to wrap up the I always love to wrap up the episode by giving listeners like our 2 cents or more or less your 2 cents on the topic. So when it comes to financial infidelity, when do you think, obviously, couples need to communicate. That's the common, the key thing that needs to happen, regardless of what your specific financial situation looks like. I think both people need to know what's going on. It may, and it's not to say you can't have a separate bank account or you can't, but it's more about you just need to be openly communicating with each other throughout the course of the relationship. What would your 2 cents be when it comes to financial infidelity? Maybe when should couples start having these conversations? Are there certain like big life milestones that, like before we move in together, when is a good time to have these conversations? And maybe if you're dating somebody or potentially about to be serious, are there any financial red flags that you should be aware of?
I think it's best to be proactive rather than reactive in a situation. And so being proactive to have those conversations beforehand, I think you asking me, like the milestones of moving in together, choosing to be married, the things of like that you're choosing to do life together. I think that those are some opportunities to say, hey, so like, let's talk about, debt and income. And because I think that it's good to know where each of you stand. And then some red flags. I think that if you see something and, like some new clothing, maybe you are living together and you see new clothing or whatever, and you ask, hey, when did you get that? And there is some, I've had it, blah, blah, blah. And there's not just an openness about it. I think you should start paying attention to, okay, wait a minute, you're not being forthcoming. You're not going ahead and just letting me know. And I think you should pay attention to those things. I think that the more red flags you put under the rug, you're going to have a huge problem later.
Yeah, exactly. Which is only going to, the more you get involved, the more complicated it's going to become down the road.
Always. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. This was fun.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Is there anything, where can people go to learn more about you, or anyone who maybe needs help with this? Where can they go to learn more about you and what you do?
So they can go to my website, OglesbyWealthStrategies.com, or they can reach out to us. Our phone number is 706-795-2597.
All right.
And we're in Watkinsville, Georgia.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mindy.
Well, thank you.
Talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That does it for this edition of Not Your Father's 2 Cents. Sources used in this episode will be included in the description below, along with a link to Mindy's website where you can go check her out if you're interested. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys here next week.